And now, the star of the show, Jordan Rogozinski.
Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Jordan 411 Sports Show. Today, today we're gonna talk about the CFL, just everything about the CFL, the Bombers, of course. But I'd like to welcome my co-host at this point, my brother Jeremy, and Michael.
Aye, we've been walking back. We haven't lost our jobs. Life is good.
Perfect.
So let's go team, but let's start in the East first. So let's go Hamilton first. I like Hamilton. I like them. They played a good game on Monday.
Yeah. It brought me back. I can't remember what year it is. Maybe somebody can look it up, or you're looking it up while you're watching and you're saying, Mike, you should be prepared. You know this stuff. Well, I vaguely remember a year where there was a 7-1 Bomber team going into Regina to play a 1-7 Rider team, and they hadn't won on Labor Day in 10 plus years. Cause that's what it was at the time. Cause the Bombers used to never win on Labor Day, and all of a sudden, the 1-7 Riders pull off a win at home, and that was also the year where the Bombers went 2-7 down the stretch and kind of limped into the playoffs. Same kind of deal here. I mean, Hamilton not had the best record, but Toronto have the polite way to put it is a lot of drama around them, particularly, given their number one quarterback in Chad Kelly. And, Hamilton probably realistically into next year territory for unless they somehow find a way to cross over, but I don't see that happening. When teams are struggling, there's one game you want to win, and that's Labor Day against your rival, and nothing else matters. You could be 0-7 on Labor Day. You win the Labor Day game, you lose every game, and every game after that, and people are happy because you just won Labor Day. That's the one that seems to kind of matter the most. I know for me, like when Bomber teams struggle, not to get, too far into the woods here. The game for me that was the most important was, did we win the Banjo Bowl? Did we win the Banjo Bowl? And that to me was the most important. Did we win the Banjo Bowl? And for me, and the problem is, like, Hamilton's a good team. I think they're better than their record indicates. Bo Levi Mitchell, statistically, one of the top quarterbacks in the league. I could never understand why he was benched for the reason that he was, and that was for a half a football game before Taylor Powell wound up getting hurt. And then he had no choice but to guilt trip himself back into playing Bo after benching Bo and all that drama that happened with the Bo Levi Mitchell. My daughter's made a lemonade stand because apparently I lost my job post on Instagram, which got some laughs. But no, Hamilton played worse than a lot of people thought they would. And this, to me, was the game where they put it all together. Yeah, they almost lost it at the end, but boy, I mean, Mitchell looked like vintage Bo Levi Mitchell. And I don't know if you know this, guys. He's yet to lose on Labor Day. He's got the best record among active quarterbacks on Labor Day behind our guys at Colaros. Only one loss on Labor Day. Labor Day is just something special. I say it all the time, and you probably heard me say it on this show, and I'll probably stop with this answer after I say this. That is, there are three parts to a CFL season: the first half, the middle part, the end part. I always say the real season starts on Labor Day, and for whatever reason, that is the quintessential benchmark for a second half springboard. Everything happens after Labor Day. You know that the way that saying goes, and hopefully it springboards Hamilton. But listen, it hasn't been a good year for the Chats. However, two great games. The X factor for them, the Winnipeg game, which they lost on the last drive. Now they won this one, even though they almost lost it. Volunteer defensive specialist Chris Jones might be the key to what is going on in Hamilton. Although I think it's too late, we can get to Chris Jones if you have a little bit more time. But my opinions on Hamilton: one game, two games, two games. Now I just put together back to back their best games of the year. Let's see what they do going forward.
I like that both starting to get on the same page with Tim White because they've been struggling for all the year. So
I mean, when Shamar Bridges comes in as your number one wide receiver for most parts of the year, and David, I took in our CFL fantasy pool amongst our podcast. I took Tim White in the first round, and it hadn't materialized. Subsequently traded him for a trade that I now regret. But yeah, I mean, Tim White was vintage Tim White. Bo Levi Mitchell was vintage Bo Levi Mitchell, and he finally had some defense to back him, Jeremy.
Yeah, I think Chris Jones will really help Hamilton. I think he'll help their defense. I mean, you can see it already. But I don't know. I just think it's too little too late. I mean, they dug themselves a pretty good hole. I don't know if they'll be able to get out of it. But
because to me, for Hamilton to make the playoffs, they have to pretty much win out and then have Toronto drop back significantly. I think Ottawa's in the playoffs.
Oh,
and obviously, I think Montreal's in the playoffs.
Montreal made it already. They clinched.
Right?
Montreal clinched.
Yeah, Montreal will be in. They've lost once in the last calendar year, so.
Yeah. No, Montreal officially clinched already.
Oh yeah, they're in. Oh yeah, they're in. So yeah, they can't. They can't miss.
They're like how the Bombers were a couple years ago.
Yeah, well, yeah, even last year, they remind me of the Bombers in 21, right? They kind of that undercover. I don't know, Jordan, if you want to move to Montreal while we're on the topic.
Yeah, we'll move there.
Winnipeg winning in 19. They're the third seed in the West. They upset a heavily favored Hamilton and then in the Grey Cup, and they come back the next year. So that's year wiped out because of COVID. So from 19 to 21, Winnipeg had that really good year. I think they were 14-4. 13-5, whatever they were in 21 to win the Grey Cup against Hamilton, and you kind of start to see the same process sort of build. And I just think about it. And I don't know if you remember this last offseason, the Montreal Alouettes. There was a scenario where they didn't have an owner. There was a scenario of the team might fold. The general manager didn't know what kind of resources he would have to work with. Boy, quite a turnaround. You win the Grey Cup later that year, and now I think you're the undisputed best team in the CFL, and probably the best Montreal team since the heyday of Calvillo days. Calvillo, Cahoon, Calvillo, Cahoon, those types of guys in the early 2000s, but nobody seemed to win in Montreal except for the Bombers. When the Bombers were bad, they'd go into Montreal and pull out a bit of a horseshoe at times. But no, Montreal was dominant back then, and I can even remember the Bombers being in the East and having those battles with Montreal. What stands out to me is 20. Year we played the Riders in the Grey Cup and lost 2011. I want to say 20.
No,
2007. You know, Calvillo got injured that year. Montreal finishes third. Winnipeg wins the semifinal at home in a walk-off field goal. And then they go into Toronto. Toronto only won that division late in the season because they beat Winnipeg in Toronto, and Kevin Dwan and the Bombers go in there, and in the fourth quarter, Kevin Dwan breaks his arm, and this guy from Boise State, who's now in Toronto, his name is Ryan Dinwiddie, ends up playing at quarterback. His backup, his third stringer that day is Zach Taylor, who, by the way, is now the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals. So we didn't quite know that at the time, but it's such a historical thing that, you know, it's so glad. That's what I'm trying to say. You know, my long-winded discussion here is it's good to have Montreal back at the top, and it's good to have a resurgent Ottawa team as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's good for the league and Edmonton.
Yep.
Edmonton Elks too. That it's good for Edmonton. It's good for Edmonton to be successful. Montreal. I mean, you want to see the stands filled, right? Because that means money. So.
Yep. So we did So Ottawa would be next.
Yep, we can do Ottawa.
You want to take that one before I start talking?
Yeah.
Ottawa. They started off good. So they're kind of they're doing well. I mean, Drew Brown is unbelievable. He's the way he can throw the ball like over the middle of the field, and how powerful his arm is, and how accurate he is. Yep. It's unbelievable to watch him. He's had a hell of a year. I was shocked that they released Raquel Armstead the other day for Jamal Morrow. I don't know if something happened with Armstead and Victoria, maybe.
Yeah,
Armstead's like the fourth in rushing this year in the CFL. So.
Yeah, I have a little bit of insight. Now, again, nothing formally from the team, but if you remember, Raquel Armstead was kicked out of the game for 2 misconduct penalties a few weeks ago.
Okay.
To me, I just think there's things going on behind the scenes that the team grew tired of.
Yeah.
And they wanted to move to a more proven running back in Jamal Morrow, given where their season was. That's what I think it came down to. I don't think it was performance related. I don't know for sure because I'm not around the team, but my sense is they just didn't want to put up with him anymore, and they saw Morrow as a viable option and just made the switch. To me, it says loudly, but you don't want to promote the guy to a backup. What you really think of somebody when you just go, hey, you're a starter for the first, 9, 10, 11 weeks of the season, and boom, now you're not even relegated to a backup role. You're off the team entirely. And a guy that failed 3 physicals in Calgary with the Stampeders is now with Ottawa, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I mean Ottawa's defense is, I think, right up there. So, and they haven't lost at home yet, so that's another thing for Ottawa.
And let's excuse the fact that they played a quarterback that makes every defense look like a video game in Nathan Ward every single week when he's firing. So,
yeah,
I just think last week was an off week, and we'll see Ottawa bounce back.
Yeah.
Now we're on to Toronto.
Toronto, yay!
Yeah, there's a reason we left this one for last. Obviously, the quarterback distraction, Chad Kelly. Apparently, he refused to shake the opponent's hand after losing the other game. You win your first game back after not particularly playing well. You win it on a walk-off rouge. Now you lose to the worst team in the CFL. Doesn't do much to inspire confidence, but
No.
No, the team around them did what they did what they needed to do, I think, to stay afloat. And
Yeah.
suddenly, I think Toronto with Chad Kelly, all of his distractions aside, I think you're adding the top 3 quarterback in the league.
Oh, for sure.
And I think they're a legitimate player in the East, regardless of where their standing is right now.
Yep. No, I would agree.
Yeah.
Their defensive line is good. Their defense is good. They can get a lot of pressure. They have
Yep.
one of the top 3 defenses in the league.
Yep.
And then, I mean, Chad Kelly. I mean, we all have our opinions that I don't know if we want to get into too much on here, but
Well, I think I'll say it like this because I think we all feel the same way. I think given the allegations that surfaced with the whole scenario and the outrage that happened among prominent CFL women, there is a large portion of the league that feels he should not be given a second chance.
no.
And I think that's where a lot of the situation sort of, whatever side of the line you're on, is sort of
Yeah.
the polarizing issue. Personally speaking, and I'm not gonna speak for you two, but now with this Sean Lemon gambling aspect, and
I was gonna bring that up. Yeah.
and then you sort of read between the lines, but it looks like Sean Lemon's CFL season is done. Because I saw some comments, from the commissioner that said, that's an off-season issue. We don't want to take away from Labor Day weekend. There'll be a time and a place to address that.
I think
that told me that it'll be an off-season issue to be dealt with. And again, I'm not trying to excuse Lemon's actions. Now you have what Chad Kelly did, and that's allegedly did, by the way. That still necessarily hasn't been proven, but that's a 9-game suspension, and you're making an example out of somebody for betting on his own games and saying that is supposedly worse. Like,
That's worse.
I don't.
Like, to me, there's no. Like, to me, they're both. I'll be clear. To me, they're both very serious issues, but it seems like the seriousness of the issues has sort of been misrepresented, if you will.
Yeah.
But even though they're both very, very serious issues, it just seems like one is. It just seems to me, from an outsider's perspective, that the priorities on message sending seem to be a little backwards. And to me, if you have to institute a last chance clause that if this ever happens again, tells me that, we don't really trust you and we're very close to kicking you out of the lead.
Yeah.
The other thing is, it makes me wonder if this is anybody other than the success that Chad Kelly has had, if this would be a non-issue or if they would have just been released and we never hear the light of day about it again, right? So, as much as Chad Kelly's been made an example of, I just seriously wonder the optics of a
even the
of a scenario, but if it's anybody else than Chad Kelly, if that's not even an issue, and because Chad Kelly is one of your premier players, like the optics to me in that scenario don't look very good either. So, you just need to set a precedent. I think they got the whole precedent thing wrong, and don't even get me started about we handle each case with individual.
No.
Like each case on its individual merit, to me that doesn't go very far. That's a very That's a very that doesn't hold a lot of water with me as well.
Cliche, like it's just a cliche thing to say.
Like, and the last thing you want is, and I know we're starting to see this, with the NFL starting this week about, that you're starting to hear that crowd of, oh yeah, it's good that the NFL is back. Now the real football comes back.
Yeah,
There's a credibility issue among NFL diehards with the CFL, and these two instances in particular, not to get too far into the weeds, certainly do not help the situation.
yeah.
But as far as Toronto's play on the field, it's been okay despite everything that's been going on. To me, they've exceeded expectations.
Yeah. And even, I mean, one more thing about the Chad Kelly, even how the organization handled it. Like, they didn't seem very forthcoming with it. So, I don't know. Like if a woman goes to, like, someone higher up and says that this happened, you just get rid of her? Like, I don't know. That's not how you handle that. You got to do some investigation, like, as a team, They just didn't seem very cooperative. I don't know, Toronto. And you think pinball would be, like, all over
They seem to make
right?
a smaller issue of the deal than a lot of people, and they don't really help the scenario. Because let's be clear, if Chad Kelly was a Winnipeg Blue Bomber,
Oh yeah.
I don't think we have any of this whole discussion, because I think it's an automatic release. Never mind scenario, never mind appeal, never mind suspension, never mind coming back into the room. Sorry, but that's how I feel. It is a team issue. The team has said that we will side with you for a second chance. Whereas Winnipeg would have said, no, I think you're gone, you're done, you did your damage, you're not welcome here, basically.
And that says a lot about Toronto culture, too. Like their team.
It does. And the problem is their ownership group, which is Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment,
I know.
They do not, it seems like they do not want to lose their marketing ability. Chad Kelly is a marketable
face
person when it comes to name recognition with the Argos.
Yeah.
But truth be told, I think even within your own fan base, you've divided your own fan base about whether he should be back with your team or not. And you irritated a large portion of the rest of the league, I think, with this. And we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, now we'll go over to the Wild Wild West.
Oh, how have the standings changed in the last 24 hours?
Oh my God, eh?
It seems like every time you look,
what's it gonna look like a month from now?
Yeah. Let's talk quickly to do with some breaking news that came in from the Winnipeg Blue Bombers while we're recording this. I don't know if you happen to see this at all.
No.
But they're inviting people to the tailgate area for Saturday's Banjo Bowl, okay?
Yeah.
At 12:30 for what they're calling on their Instagram, and I'm reading it right from their Instagram. It's time to channel your inner Joey Chestnut. We're having a watermelon eating contest.
Oh wow.
That's cool.
That's cool.
Saturday at 12:30 at the pregame tailgate.
That's cool.
For the first 12 people to sign up.
Wow.
Wow.
I couldn't do it, man. No way.
But to watch that would be
people would barf.
Yeah.
But no, seriously though. What do we think about the Labor Day game?
Oh, Oh, it started out hot until Saskatchewan did a cheap shot.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
to me, you could do a whole show on the last 3 minutes of that game. Never mind the first 57.
It was wild.
But if I'm the Bombers, man, 0-4 to now 6-6, you're 6-2 in your last 8, and your QB1 hasn't necessarily been the best player.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Yep.
So what do you think of the Bombers? Did you think they were done at 0-4 going back to back against BC? 2-4?
Did I think they were done? The thing with me is I always believe.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I was frustrated.
Yeah.
Because I know that we're a good team. But in the back of my mind, I knew we would somehow turn it around. I mean, I remember BC 0-5, 2011, and they won the Grey Cup.
We are 1-5, I think they were, and
1-5. Yeah.
Yeah, I just remember that because Andrew Harris was on that team. That was a team quarterback by Buck Pierce.
Yeah.
And the Bombers wound up losing the Grey Cup to them that year.
That year.
So.
But now it could be reversed. Montreal could make it. They could be like 15-3, and you could have a West team that's 9-9 that makes the Grey Cup.
Well, it happened last year. Look at that. I mean, Montreal was 10-7.
Yeah.
They got hot to get in. The Bombers were 12-6, 11-5. I can't remember.
Yeah.
They wound up losing the Grey Cup because Fajardo had the game of his life in the final 3 minutes there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
he's really rejuvenated himself compared to when he was in Saskatchewan, eh?
What do you think? Well, we'll get to Saskatchewan in just a second here, but what do we think about what's going on in Calgary lately?
Oh, God.
I mean, they just lost to Edmonton. They didn't look good doing it. Jake Mayer doesn't make it out of the fourth quarter. He's replaced by Bonner. Bonner turns the ball over a couple times. To me, I had higher expectations for Calgary, but I think they're the worst team in the CFL West, and I think it's a significant margin. I don't think it's you're the worst, and then there's somebody right behind you. I think Calgary is the worst, and I don't think it's close.
I think they're the worst in the whole league. Never mind just the West.
Okay, so let's look at it this way. Is that a talent disparity in the East compared to the West? Or is the lead so up and down that there's no clear winner, no disrespect to Montreal on one end and Hamilton on the other end? To me, it's Hamilton clear last place. And then it's Montreal clear first place. And then take names out of a hat for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
I know. Yeah. That's the thing. Yeah.
You look at something as subjective as power rankings.
Yeah.
And I know me and my co-host on our CFL podcast come up with 4 different variations of power rankings.
It's hard. Very hard.
It's hard.
Except Montreal. But even who's last now? Hamilton, I think, might be better than Calgary now. So
it's one game.
Yeah, but they play good in Winnipeg too, though.
So, and again, that's the other thing. What are you subjecting power rankings to? The season as a whole, or play as of late?
Yeah, that
Because play as of late and the Bombers being 6-2 in their last 8, for me, they would be number 2 in a lot of power rankings.
yeah. That's the thing. I don't know how you go about that, eh? Like if you do the whole season or
See,
if
and,
you,
and then if you did the last 6 weeks or 7 weeks, Edmonton would be number 3 or 4. Ottawa would be number 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
the
this
Riders
league
would be
is
down.
so
They would be
tight.
down there. They would be
May-
like 7th.
Maybe we better come back and do a show in 2 weeks and share power rankings and we'll see just how different everybody is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that'd be
maybe.
cool.
Yeah.
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 But no, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Edmonton's resurgence, and just think the Bombers play them twice coming up.
I mean, if you look at it historically now, like coming out of this weekend, my personal opinion is if the Bombers win the Banjo Bowl, which I think 4 out of 5 CFL pick'em pundits picked the Bombers when I
But
was looking.
also,
When I
I
was,
believe the Riders are starting 2 rookie guards at O line. Like their O line is
yeah,
decimated.
yeah, so that's interesting. But my opinion is if the Bombers win this game, which they should historically, mind you, historically people said the Riders would win the Labor Day game, and look what happened.
Yeah, I
I
know.
think if the Bombers win this game, they have the front door to a home playoff game.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
They have
And
the front door. They
that
have
would
the
cost.
front because they will have had the season series with Calgary. They would have had the season series with the Riders. They would have had the season series with BC, and they still have 2 head-to-head with Edmonton.
And if
So
Montreal can beat BC tomorrow, and we win, that helps us even more.
yeah. Yeah, and listen, I don't think Rourke didn't have the same success with Montreal against Montreal, but he had against Ottawa in the second week of a back-to-back, and
Yeah.
it's so hard. That's why I'm not entirely surprised that won that game, that second game. It's hard to sweep a team back-to-back.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And I think BC, as of late, when they were 5-1, they were overachieving a little bit. And now, they had a 1-5 stretch or lost 5 in a row at one point before winning this last one.
Yep.
I don't think they're as good as their 5-1 start. I don't think they're as bad as, losing the last bunch in a row.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and then I mean the Riders, are they going to win another game all year?
I mean, the Riders, they were 4-0, and now they're 1-5-1 or 1-6-1, and they had a tie with Ottawa in there where, if they don't call a pass interference and they don't call everybody back on the field, and that whole charade that they probably win that game. But it's just something about it. I mean, they beat Edmonton, they beat Hamilton twice. So they beat up on some pretty bad teams, in my opinion, to start 4-0. But it just seems like it doesn't seem to matter who the coach is. The same problems seem to kind of be circulating.
Yeah.
That headshot on Colaris. Oh my God.
Yeah. So, but you know what? It's just get into the playoffs and anything can happen, right?
Look at 2019. We were 3rd place. I never thought we'd win 2 on the road and win the Grey Cup. But you never know, eh?
Yep.
But I tell you, man, if we get that West final, good luck coming to Winnipeg in November.
So let's end this show this way because we've already been on a lot longer than we bargained for.
Yeah.
What are we most looking forward to about the Banjo Bowl?
Oh, most looking forward to about the Banjo Bowl. Probably the run out intro, because it will be like louder than normal.
Yeah,
How
For
about
me,
you? Yeah.
for me, I hope it's a nice day. Number one, clear skies, sunny. I hope, and the atmosphere, like that game, it's just different. It's loud. Like your ears are like ringing when the other team's on defense. Like it's so loud. And hopefully the Bombers can get off to a hot start and get the crowd into it and put on a good show.
Yep.
yeah, no, it's so good that they're actually so excited about the atmosphere that they're doing the parking ride an extra hour early.
Wow. Wow.
And it's the first game of the season on CTV this year, so
Oh,
Yeah.
that's different, eh?
Yeah.
yeah, so it's,
Are they trying out for a possible deal next year?
yeah, it's Saturday afternoon games for the rest of the season on CTV here going forward. And then the Grey Cup will be on CTV too, which is about 20 years too late if you ask me.
But do you think like next year they could possibly get a TV deal?
Um
Or is CTV under TSN? Is it the same?
Now keep in mind TSN and CTV are owned by the same company.
Okay.
So it's not that much of a change, but I would expect the CTV exclusive package next year going forward. Uh, and I think that's the best thing possible for the CFL, right? Eyeballs on your product. You need a pair of rabbit ears to watch CTV, and you don't need to pay a subscription fee to have TSN on your cable or your satellite. If nobody can view your product and nobody can watch your product, how do they know about it, right?
Yep.
Exactly. Get more eyeballs on it.
And making eyeballs on your product would be certainly beneficial.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, this was fun. We talked
Yeah,
about a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, Jordan.
Thank you. And thank you, Michael. And bye bye.
yep, you're welcome.
Yep.